what I realized was, it was actually a realization I had when I went through my financial statements with my accountant, and that was that I had invested probably over the past 2 years over $150,000 in courses, coaches, consultants, and going to seminars, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, I was spending more than I was earning as it relates to coaching, and that obviously doesn't make a lot of sense. But when I took a step back, there was a couple things that I kind of came to realize, and the first was the type of people that I wanted to attract into my coaching were people I knew would get a result, right? And so without going into like the specifics of each person that either did or didn't get a result, I would say that when I go through my list, about one third of the people that I helped actually bought their first commercial property. And then there was obviously a good portion that either invested in other syndications, possibly passively, or were part of other deals. And so the batting average was quite high, right? Especially as it relates to a lot of other coaches I've heard of in the industry. And I think it was because I was very clear up front that it was going to be hard. There was no guarantees, meaning it was going to be uncertain as to when they were going to actually find a property. I was very clear that they needed, a good amount of money. Generally, I suggested a minimum of $250,000. And so, I was kind of filtering and really attracting people that were like not emotionally in like excited about the idea, right? I wanted to get the excitement out of the conversation because I knew the realities of investing in commercial real estate, and that is it is not easy, it is difficult, it takes time, and I can't guarantee someone's going to find a property in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, right? I mean, it takes time, and the worst thing you can do is rush a bad deal, right? And you're going to see where all this is kind of going here shortly. But when I realized how I was actually buying courses and material from people, is I wasn't asking the hard questions. I was literally hoping that someone had the secret or the hack or the method or the system that was going to help me to like the one thing that was all of a sudden going to turn my whole coaching program around. And what I realized was that they were selling me hope. They were selling me what I wanted to find, if you will, right? And that was the quick fix, the magic formula, if you will. And I paid dearly for that, right? And so there was obviously a significant disconnect, right? So here I am over here selling the what I consider to be the truth, right? The truth for me, anyways, in terms of my experience in commercial real estate, and yet what I was buying over here was completely different. Meaning, I was paying for people to tell me what I wanted to hear, right? And it was my fault because I wasn't even asking the right questions because I don't think I really wanted to know the truth. And so, how does this all kind of how did I come to realize this, right? Well, there's a couple of instances. One was when I first started working with my now business partner in the construction company. I remember the two of us were planning our annual plan, right? Our strategy for the year, and we had a call with a marketing and sales consultant, and he called us, and literally within 3 minutes, Mark basically said, "Dude, send Shane an email later, but like this conversation's over." And he was very blunt, very direct. And really, what I realized was that this coach was used to selling this hope, this magic system, and Mark literally had zero time for it. And he understood that to grow a company, it's not easy, and there is no one magic system, if you will, right? And so he just cut it off like this, just immediately. And that kind of awakened me a little bit, if you will, in terms of like, okay, this is how serious business people buy, right? They are not, they're not going to be fooled by tricks or hype or fluff, and they really want to get down to, I don't want to just say brass taxes, but they really are looking for like, are you like, can you do you have the results? And if you have the results, can you actually help me, right? And so here's kind of an analogy that I came up with, and as it relates to coaching and why I don't necessarily believe that. I think coaching works in some cases, if you will, but I can see why the majority of people that I work with today, as it relates to either on the construction side or people that are investing in our deals, they want certainty. Okay. And what I was providing as a coach, I couldn't give them that certainty. Right. And so think of it like a personal trainer, right? That's kind of what I was initially. I was a personal trainer for people that wanted to invest in commercial real estate. And the sales pitch is you got to eat healthy. So you got to change how you eat. You got to go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. You need to follow this like very specific program. And if you follow this over the next 12 months, you'll eventually start to lose weight and look good and blah, 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 right? I mean, that is, there's truth to that. However, if given the chance, the alternative is, and I have a friend who's a cosmetic surgeon, pay me $10,000 and I'll transform you in 2 hours, right? And so there's much higher level of certainty, much lower risk, much lower investment of time and energy to get the outcome. And so what I realized personally was, okay, you know what? Instead of selling people what they need, vitamins, health, eating properly, if you will, why not just do the thing for them, right? So in construction, we build for developers, right? They don't need to go out and learn it. They don't need to figure out all the different spreadsheets and all the rest of it. Between my business partner who understands construction and myself on the development side, we come together and really help our clients and hands-on, like we actually do it for them, right? Or on our own projects, people that have money and say, you know what, we don't want to spend 10 years to learn what you've learned, Shane. Can we just partner with you? Can we just come along for the ride, if you will, right? And this was just an important revelation, if you will, right? And I want to tie this all hopefully together. I'm not sure if it's more confusing than it is helpful, but I had a conversation with a friend this week, I guess yesterday, because it's only Tuesday, and he called and said, Shane, I've got a property that I'm looking at, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but he said, look, I'm going to offer like $2.5 million, right? And I said, okay, what's the NOI on it? NOI is your net operating income. That's how commercial properties are valued. He said, well, right now it's at about 125. I said, okay, so like what's the cap rate, right? And the cap rate is, the easiest way to think of it is, if you were to buy the property all cash, what return would you expect, right? So for example, if you said, I would buy it at a 10% cap rate, which in this case is kind of where he thought the property should be, he should only pay 1.25 million, right? So 1.25 million divided by, or times 10%, 0.1 is equal to 125,000, okay? So I said, so why are you offering 2.5 on it? Well, that's what the brokers wanted, and the seller paid 3 million, and this whole long story. And I said, okay, but none of that matters. Like, the only thing that matters is the facts. The facts are the NOI is 125. You're gonna have to spend, let's just say $500,000 to improve the property, right? To raise rents by a couple $100. And if you do all that, then the property will eventually be worth, call it 2.5 to 2.75 million, right? I said, like, the seller's problem is not your problem. But if you buy this property and overpay for it, and I've seen this so many times when I was a broker, because every once in a while, not once in a while, like almost on a weekly basis, we would be getting calls from people, investors that were new, and they were buying properties that they really should not have bought in the first place, but set aside that fact, they bought it, they overpaid. 5 years later, it's still underwater. They owe more than the mortgage, and they have no way to get out of it. And I just said to my friend, look, if you buy this property, the only way that I would recommend it, first, I don't recommend that you buy it at all, but let's say you do want to go down the path, then these are the facts, right? And unless I'm missing something, right, there's no excess land, you can't do something different with the property, the value is what the value is, right? Like just strip out all the emotion, strip out all of the hype and fluff and all the rest of it, because let's face it, the people that are presenting it to you, they're showing you in the best light, right? But you have to be able to detach and take a step back and say, okay, what is the real value of the property today and then in the future? What's it going to take to go from point A to point B, right? And then based on that, what is the risk and what is the opportunity for you in the future? And so literally within 15 minutes, wasn't like I was trying to talk him out of it. I was really just trying to help him assess whether or not the opportunity was right for him. And if he was going to pursue it, then this is kind of the best path forward, right? And the reason I'm telling you this is like you don't need necessarily a coach to do that, right? What you do need, in my opinion, is just someone, whether it's an advisor, whether it's someone that understands it, like literally, as long as a person understands commercial real estate. But if you're in another area of your life that you're looking for guidance on, just having someone to ask those kind of questions to take you out of that emotional attachment, if you will, right? Like when I used to pay for coaching, I wouldn't tell my wife about it, quite honestly, in most cases, because I knew she would ask the hard questions and I didn't have the answers, right? Because I was deluding myself. And I was just so hopeful that it was going to all work out. And I can just tell you that, it didn't. And frankly, a lot of it was, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. But the point is, look, if you can have someone that kind of takes that approach and just asks you the difficult questions, like, why are you buying it? What's the situation? Explain it to me. And generally what happens is just through 5 or 6 questions, you can start to unpack the truth. But it's very difficult when you're trying to do it for yourself because you're too close to the situation. Much better to have someone that is impartial, that's not afraid to potentially hurt your feelings, because they're not there to hurt your feelings. They're just there to protect you, right? And so I guess the other part of that is make sure that they don't have a bias, right? Like you wouldn't ask the broker trying to sell you the property to kind of role play with you and go through that because they have a vested interest in you buying it, right? So you really need to find someone that is unbiased that can give you that proper guidance and questions. So I don't know if all that made sense, but I thought it's been going on in my mind for a little while. Then when I had the conversation with my friend yesterday, I realized that this concept of getting very close to something, getting emotionally vested up front, everybody, but I know myself and a lot of people that I interact with, we get too close to something and it's very difficult to be rational. It's much easier to kind of go on what we consider to be our gut instinct. And I don't actually believe it's not gut. It's we're investing on emotion versus rationale. And if you're going to put a lot of money, like the easiest thing to do is to buy something or invest. The reality sets in. And I can tell you, having owned properties that I never should have, or I should have had a different business model or plan for, it can be very difficult when you own a property and you can't get out of it, right? Like I said, you have all the optionality up front when you're buying something. When you own it, you're stuck with it, or you could be stuck with it. So anyways, bit of a ramble. Hopefully this helped even one person. And look, if it helps you avoid, like my friend, from making a $2.5 million mistake, wonderful. That's it. Have a great week. Talk to you later.